Well, some things remain constant in baseball, like the fact that the Mets make no sense.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. And today's episode is brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the summer games wind down, the sports stop sports and like we want them to. But as long as the summer remains, FanDuel is okay at all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Follow us at Locked On MLB on Twitter or whatever it's called now. And same handle for Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball, Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And you can see that I'm not alone today because we're talking Mets. Holy Toledo, I made a mistake. But we're going to keep on going. We're here with Ryan Finkelstein, not Jeff Carr, as it says on the on there. Someone made a mistake. Don't worry, I can fix it. So you're not Jeff Carr, much to my utter surprise. It's Jeff Finkelstein. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good.
Oh, man, I feel embarrassed. What are you going to? I'll fix it. Don't worry.
No worries at all.
All right. Well, look, by the way, I got to make, we're going to do a couple of, pieces of house cleaning. There's something wrong with me and the fact of the matter of, I said, I typed your name wrong here. And I also, I was asking my trivia question. My good friend Marcel pointed out that I had phrased my trivia question incorrectly. I was trying to say, what did Mike Montgomery, what rare feat did Mike Montgomery and Lance McCullers Jr. Accomplish in back-to-back seasons? And I couldn't figure out why no one could figure it out until my good friend Marcel pointed out I was saying not Mike Montgomery, but Jordan Montgomery. And people go, well, I can't figure this out. So I take that's on me. That's on me. What they both did was Mike Montgomery and Lance McCullers Jr. each got their first career major league save in Game 7 of a playoff series.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mike Montgomery's first career save in the major leagues was Game 7 of the 2016 World Series. And Lance McCullers Jr.'s first major league save was Game 7 of the 2017 American League Championship Series. By the way, I fixed it. Now says your name on there.
Good. That was quick work.
Hey, this is not my first barbecue. And by the way, I also want to bring this up. Yesterday's show, I talked about it was the anniversary of the strike. You're too young to remember the strike. You're
95. I'm born in 95. Just missed it.
And I'm literally old enough to be your father because I was a college graduate. I was a year out of college when you were born. So yeah, I remember the 94 strike very clearly. And I did I thought a pretty detailed breakdown of my memories of it and the ripple effect. I got an interesting comment from a YouTuber at RJZ217. And I love it. I really love it when people really, I'm always up for criticism. And I like that he gave me a very detailed, or I'm assuming the gender. The listener gave me a very, very constructive criticism and a very thought-worthy response. Is wrote, where is it? That's not what happened. I love it. Could you be more vague? I'm sure there was a strike. I remember that vividly. I remember vividly the Expos were in first. Maybe this is a strike denier. It's kind of like those moon landing deniers or the flat earthers. Is this what's going on? Was there a strike denier? Was there a 94 World Series? Viva les Expos! RJZ217, you got to give me more than that. I'm always willing to take criticism. Speaking of that, the Mets. Met fans hated me because I said, even after they had a very good June, they were still on the outside looking into the playoffs. I said, this is going to be a seller's market. You can get a lot more for stuff than you normally would. You're on the outside looking in. Get rid of some of your, get rid of all your expiring contracts and just throw some young players in there. You have a few pieces. I'm not saying trade Lindor, but I'm saying you've got some, you could just throw some more young players in there. And, oh, my God, you're stupid. Well, it's now the middle of August. And technically the Mets are on the outside looking in, and they just got swept by a good team in Seattle, to be sure. But and they lost the series to the Angels. Jeff, what the hell is this team? What is this team? Are they contenders or not?
Well, I mean, you changed the writing, but it's Ryan, not Jeff. But I will tell you what, with the Mets, it is a very it's tough to pinpoint who they are because there was everything before June. There was June and July. And I could see this season going one of two ways. Either they're going to stay in the mix all the way through, or it's going to fizzle out, very similar to how we watched it fizzle out in 2021, where the New York Mets were leading the division pretty much all year until the trade deadline. And we thought, all right, I guess you buy, and they made a trade to get Javi Baez, but you weren't really convinced that that was a team that had legs to make a run. And then they didn't. And in retrospect, they made a mistake by pulling the trigger on that trade. I don't think the Mets made a mistake with how they bought at this deadline. But yeah, if you want to put the autopsy on at the end of the season and say, oh, you could have got some stuff for selling, you can make that point. I think the Mets played too well in June and July to sell. And so they did the right thing to bolster their depth. They made a really good trade for Paul Blackburn that I think will help them down the stretch.
Yeah.
And so I like what they did, but am I convinced the Mets are going to make the playoffs? No, I think that I'm just hoping that they are competitive all the way through. I want to see the Mets within 3 games of a playoff spot going into the final week, and I can at least talk myself into being engaged through at least the first 160 games of this season. To me, that's a win right now.
I'm telling you where I think they did do something right. I did, and you just pointed out it. They didn't trade away like their top prospects. They didn't make a big, huge panic move. Blackburn, because I cover Locked On A's, and we'll preview the A's series, and that also will appear on an episode of Locked On A's as well. That will appear on 3 different Locked On podcasts, our A's preview. But I think that the Blackburn trade was smart. It didn't deplete their farm system. They didn't give up the big blue chip prospect. But Blackburn is a capable major league pitcher, which is what they needed to have more of those in the rotation. And so I actually thought that was a really smart move on the part of the Mets. I made most of my points when they had a phenomenal June. And I said that phenomenal June came and went, and they're still on the outside looking in. And I said, does anyone think they're also going to have a phenomenal July? And as it turned out, they did. and I had to eat my words a little bit here. When you look at this year so far, they've had, they were roughly 500 after April. They were 15-14 at the end of April. Then they had the horrific May. They were 10 games under 500 in May. So that's the first third of the season. The middle third of the season, they played like a pennant winner. And now they're stumbling a little bit in August. I think that I hate to say this guy. I hate to bring up injuries. I think the best thing that has happened to the Mets has been the injuries to the Braves and the fact that the Braves aren't the 95 to 100 win team that everyone thought they were going to be at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you look at the wild card race right now, there's a couple different outcomes. You have the Cardinals that are obviously still in the mix, as well as the Reds and the Cubs in the Central. But I don't know if I entirely believe that one of those teams is going to make it. And then you have all these teams out West. And there is a world where 4 teams make the playoffs from the West, which would be pretty crazy. I think the fact that the schedule is so split up and you don't have these teams playing each other a ton down the stretch, that does allow that possibility. The other one is it comes down to the Mets and the Braves. And there's a series, the second to last one of the season, where these 2 teams will go head to head, and they are tied right now in the season series. To me, it feels very similar to 2022, where they were neck and neck for the division, but this is obviously a lesser product, but still, if the Mets go into that series, that really for me is what this whole season comes down to. If they can go into that series and it is Mets or Braves and they can win a series and put themselves potentially in line to make the playoffs, I think this was a good year for the Mets. And ultimately, where I stand on all of it, Francisco Lindor is your franchise player. And to me, this has been his season of really becoming the leader of the New York Mets. He's done everything right, from taking the young players under his wing, the way he's handled the media, the way he rallied the troops back at the end of May and sparked this whole run. And he has been playing at a near MVP level. I don't think he's going to win it, but is he going to be in the top 5? I think absolutely.
Yeah.
So for Lindor, I think the Mets did the right thing. I think this gives them a springboard to hopefully execute a really good offseason and maybe be a real contender next year.
All right. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the good things that have happened to the Mets in this middle third and why a certain Bay Area team could hold a big key for the Mets' contention. Hey, let's hear from our friends over at Ibotta. Now, look, I know this is a year we want to sort of, I don't know, maybe have that final big cookout, that big last event of the summer, something to sort of, go out with a bang. Well, if you need to save to get to that point, then let me suggest you download the Ibotta app. What is Ibotta? Ibotta allows you to use your free app to earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user has their voice cracked like that, and they also earn $256 a year. That can cover the cost of a shopping trip for that barbecue, or you could buy that flight you've been eyeing, or that fancy dinner you've been craving. Other apps give you points. They don't amount to anything. With Ibotta, you can earn cash that you can withdraw to your bank account, PayPal, gift cards. Simply add offers in the app, upload receipt, and voila, the money is yours. You can save on over 2,400 brands and shop at over 1,000 retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. It's time that you've joined the over 50 million users who use Ibotta to earn cash back every time they shop. Right now, Ibotta is offering listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app, and start earning cash back, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA at the Google Play or App Store, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB. Ibotta! Let's save some money.
Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the summer's winding down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets you keep the sports going whenever you want, because all I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. Personally, when I'm watching Mets games, I always think Francisco Lindor is going to get a couple of hits. So what I like to do a same-game parlay on Lindor getting those 2 hits, and also the Mets getting a victory. You combine those things, you get better odds, and you can win big. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
Hey, this is a reminder that Locked On has created the first ever national 24-hour streaming channel on YouTube for all the best sports. Check out Locked On Sports Today. It's now part of the Amazon Fire TV and the Free Fire TV channel app. Check out Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube and on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. All right, Ryan, Now, we need to talk about this a little bit. You mentioned that Francisco Lindor has treated this as his it's basically his coming out party in New York. For the first time, he's being embraced by the fans this year because he's coming through big time and he's coming through. I think that, and he's being the leader that they were hoping he was going to be this whole time. If nothing else happens, I think the Mets are laying down the groundwork for next year. And I also think that basically knowing you can rely on him in this way is going to be no small feat for the Mets going into 2025. I'm not giving up on 2024, but knowing you're going to get that version of Lindor, I think is going to be very helpful.
It's huge. He's had a couple of 6-win seasons now, so it's not like he's been bad by any stretch. Last year, he had a 30-30 season, and he was playing through an injury the entire time. Right. But like you said, the fans haven't always embraced him, and it got as bad as it's ever been when he was horrible for the first month of the season this year. But the crazy thing is you take that first month out, and what he's been since then is one of the best players in the National League. I think it's pretty much been him and Ketel Marte for a couple months now, really being the best players this league has. And that's been huge. And like I mentioned before, I've just loved every single thing about Lindor. When you're talking about a guy who you've invested a ton of money in, he checks all the boxes, from how hard he works on his own game to the leadership qualities that I talked about with what he's done with Mark Vientos in particular, who spent time with Lindor this offseason to become a passable third baseman, a position that a lot of us thought he'd never be able to play at the big league level. And he's held his own there, and he's actually been a huge reason why the Mets have had success, because his bat definitely plays, but you're seeing him able to actually hold down the hot corner. I give Lindor a lot of credit for that. Just the way that, having Lindor to his left has helped Mark Vientos. And then again, handling the media and then just posting every day. It seems like whenever the Mets need a big hit, especially lately, Lindor has come through in those moments where a game, might be getting away from you, or it doesn't seem like you're going to win one. They won that Rockies series previously this past week because Lindor came through with a late hit in a game where the Mets could not get that big hit. So yeah, he has been everything to the Mets this year. And I think it's going to be really big moving forward for him to have gone through this season, to have it in his own memory bank, and for the fans to maybe give him a little bit more grace moving forward.
Yeah. And he's being the player that people were hoping he was going to be when he was in Cleveland. Yeah. So you're seeing that is, they're going to get that from him. So I think that's no small potatoes going on there. How about that for a little bit of word salad? But yeah, that's and by the way, I've been up in the Bay Area. Some of you watching know I'm back in the old studio right now. I was up in the Bay Area for the last couple of months, and I got to witness the Giants and the A's pretty closely. We're going to talk about the A's in the last segment, but the Braves are going to be playing 4 games with San Francisco starting on Monday night. So you all know what happened in that game. But an interesting thing has happened with the Giants, and that is Blake Snell, now that he has a few innings under his belt, and actually had something resembling spring training under his belt now, has been pitching like a legitimate ace. And, he has a no-hitter, several, games where he has double-digit strikeouts and everything like that. Robbie Ray, another former Cy Young Award winner who's been riddled with injuries as of late, has been pitching well, thank you very much. So has Logan Webb. And Harrison is a very talented pitcher. When you're talking about that now, the Giants could help the Mets big time if those pitchers can shut down the Acuna-less Braves lineup. What could be scary for the Mets is the fact that the Giants now have a very deep starting rotation, and some of their bats are hitting a little bit better, and they're only a few games out of a wild card right now. And if you have a team where they have a 4 or 5 deep starting rotation and only a game or so between, all of a sudden that, hey, thanks Giants for beating the Braves, turns into, oh man, we could have used some Giant losses right there. That's what I love about down the stretch is you root for one team one day, and later you're like, oh God, it would have been better if that team lost.
Yeah, honestly, I said that on my show yesterday where I said, I don't know who I want to win this series. And it almost feels like a split would be the best thing if the Mets can take advantage of their schedule to maybe gain on those teams, or get a little bit further ahead of the Giants and get back in front of the Braves. But yeah, if you just told me down the stretch, which team am I buying into more, it's really tough because the Giants seem to be riding the wave right now where they feel like a team that is really dangerous. Particularly, if you ask me which one would I want to see in a wild card series, I would say the Braves, which is crazy because I don't want to face that pitching in a wild card series. Ultimately, though, if you got to ask where I'm rooting this week, it's definitely still with the Giants because
of course it is. Of course it is.
If the Giants make the playoffs and the Braves and the Mets don't, it's still to me a net positive. But the Braves have had a very strange season, and so you see Matt Olson hit a couple home runs over the weekend. You're like, oh, wait a minute, that's still in there. They still could get hot. It's just been one of those years where it feels like the Braves aren't going to be able to put it together, but you really never know.
It's funny when Seattle won the Sunday night game big last night. My cousin Dave, who is a lifelong Met fan, taunted me during the '86 World Series. Basically texted me saying, "It's over. I'm done watching this team the rest of the year." And half a game separates the Braves and the Mets with about roughly a month and a half to go. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming series with Oakland and why that's not the easy game that I'm sure Mets fans thought they were going to be entering. All right, let's hear from our friends over at Supply House. Order supplies from the website that's made for the skilled trades. Find thousands of parts from hundreds of brands in just a couple of clicks at supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com gives you 24/7 access to a huge selection of plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with fast delivery anywhere in the U.S. Need help with an order? Get industry-leading after-sales service from their friendly and knowledgeable customer support team and talk to a real person every time. And there's great news for plumbers, technicians, and contractors. Being a pro has its perks. Trade industry professionals can join their free TradeMaster program for free shipping and serious discounts on every order. Over 100,000 pros already trust the TradeMaster program to deliver results. Apply for your membership today and get a competitive edge on every order at supplyhouse.com/TM. Save money and time when you order online. Order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Now, this seems kind of weird to tell you to tune in to Locked On MLB, but do you know what? Because if you're listening to me right now, you're listening to Locked On MLB, but maybe you're listening to Locked On Mets. I don't know. Check me out. I'm your pal Sully. I'm here all week long, 5 episodes a week of Locked On MLB. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. However, if you really like what I'm doing, guess what you should also do? Check out Locked On A's, because I'm hosting Locked On A's 5 days. That's right. If you like what I'm doing, guess what? You have 10 episodes a week of your pal Sully hosting here at the Locked On Podcast Network. Even if you're not an A's fan, we're doing some fun things there. It's the last season in Oakland, and it's weird. I have an upcoming episode where I go to all the spots where they propose to build stadiums in the Bay Area. And guess what? There are no new stadiums in any of those places. And you could have checked me out going to Sacramento, where I sat basically on the surface of the sun in a July afternoon game where it was so hot that my phone overheated while trying to record a podcast. So check us out, Locked On MLB, Locked On A's. Check out Ryan's show at Locked On Mets. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. All right, so we're crossing over right now, Locked On A's, Locked On Mets, and Locked On MLB. Everyone's hearing this right now. The A's started, obviously the A's are a weird team this year. They were horrific. They were grotesque in May and June. And then they were the best team in the American League in July. And they remain a good team after winning that series in Toronto. Brent Rooker can homer at will. And they still, and Mason Miller is back from the injured list. No one traded him. They still can pitch. They still can hit. So if Met fans were circling in the A's series saying, well, there's 3 easy wins right there, you might be surprised. What is your thoughts as the A's seem to be relishing playing the spoiler, beating teams like Philadelphia and Houston recently? What are your thoughts and concerns about the Mets and A's series coming up?
It's funny. I for Just Baseball and the Managing Editor, I just assigned a story today talking about the best spoilers down the stretch, and the A's were the first team that came to mind because they have been playing great baseball. And there's nothing worse than going into a series against a team that's playing good but has nothing to lose. And I think Mets fans experienced that last week when the Angels took a series, when the Rockies really pushed the Mets. And I said after the Mets won the second game of that series, after they lost the first one, I was like, man, just get them out of Colorado. I'd almost want to see a good team because maybe the Mets play up to competition instead of down to competition. Then I met the Mariners over the weekend. I think I'm happy that we're not going to watch Logan Gilbert, Luis Castillo, all those great pitchers in this series. I think the Mets have an easier task ahead than what they just went through, but it's not just a cakewalk by any stretch. It's not what's going to be the weekend series against the Marlins. This is definitely the tougher of the two series, but it doesn't get any easier after this. The Mets have to win this week because they got the Orioles coming next week to close out their homestand. And then they have maybe the most important road trip of the season going out to face the Padres and the Diamondbacks. So there's no time to lose series. They have to find a way to beat the A's, but that's not as easy as you would think if you just looked at the total season record.
Well, it's been following the A's all year. And Brent Rooker, how he did make the All-Star team, I have absolutely no idea. And I like the fact, obviously I've been following the A's the whole season, but I've liked the fact that they didn't do a total fire sale. They did trade. They made the deal with the Mets. They traded Urseg to Kansas City. They made a couple of deals, but they kept Andujar. They kept Rooker. They didn't trade Miller. They didn't trade Estes and some of their other pitchers who have been pitching well. They basically said no. Let's and Rooker was relieved. Rooker didn't want to be traded. And by the way, here's a message to all the people, the people who comment and things like that. What, does he not want to be on a winner? What does he not want to do with this? First of all, brush the Cheetos off your chest. All right. And maybe, just maybe, it's not exactly convenient to up and move at a heartbeat, sometimes across the country in the middle of a season. But in the case of Brent Rooker, he didn't want to be traded because he revived his career with the A's. He was a DFA dude. He couldn't find a job with Minnesota. He became an all-star caliber pitcher, and he wanted to be part of the A's as they, for the organization that basically rescued his career. He wanted to be there at the end of this weird year to be at the final games in Oakland. He would say, hey, this team turned it around for me. I don't want to be traded in midseason so I can be a rental player in Philadelphia or wherever. So if you've not been in that position, kindly shutteth uppeth, all right? You know, it's like they just should be, it's a pain in the butt to move in midseason. Maybe he has a sense of loyalty. There's no loyalty in baseball. He was loyal. No, he's a loser. No, you're on your fifth, French bread pizza, and you're calling him a loser. Come on, just continue playing Farmville or whatever, and shut up. I got no deal. But okay, back to reality. I think this is going to be the A's are playing with a certain swagger, and they're having fun. Lawrence Butler. I don't know if you know who Lawrence Butler is. Lawrence Butler's been hitting the snot out of the ball, and he's been playing like a poor man's Kenny Lofton, basically. Sparky at the top of the order, going first to third. They still have holes. This team's probably going to finish with 90-something losses, but even 90-something losses will be a 20-game improvement from last year. Go Sacramento! But anyway, I think that if Met fans are only half paying attention and they think this is the 110 some odd loss team from last year, they're going to be in for a rude awakening when Rooker homers. Yeah,
no, the A's they have a much better team, and I think their direction was sort of interesting, right? Because everyone, said, all right, we'll sell all. Why not sell everything you can? But at the same time, if you still have pieces that have control, you could build towards something. That front office is still trying to win baseball games and looking at next year and beyond. Well, maybe. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fine. Well, for the sake of argument, yes.
I'm just saying they have to be doing something, right? They can't. just because the ownership has given up until they get to Vegas doesn't mean that the front office has. And so it makes some sense to me that they kept Rooker. And ultimately for him too, I would say that, he has a chance here to finish off a great season in Oakland. And then he might be an attractive trade chip in the off season where he can start a year with a club from the beginning as a big piece of what they're doing. But yeah, this is a A's team that is definitely a lot better than, again, the total record would suggest. And it's not going to be easy at the same time. This is a series. If you want to be a playoff team, the Mets got to win it. They got to find a way to put some runs on the board. And I think the fact that they had such a rough series in Seattle, to me, coming back home, I feel like they are going to get going a little bit offensively. It's just a matter of if the pitching can hold up. And we'll see how that ends up working out against an A's lineup that's swinging it really well.
Well, but you're always swinging it really well. So, Ryan, tell people where they can follow your show.
Wherever you're getting Locked on MLB or Locked on A's, you're going to be able to find Locked on Mets. You can follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Find the show at Locked on Mets. And yeah, that's about it. And follow us on YouTube as well, of course. Trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the season. So I appreciate all of you who subscribe over there.
And you can follow whichever show you're watching. You can either Locked on MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram, Locked on A's on those platforms. And either way, I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Talking about an up and down Mets season and a Mets A's series, which at the beginning of the year didn't look like it had any consequences to it. This has been a Locked on MLB, Locked on Mets, and Locked on A's crossover. Woo! That's a lot. He's Ron Finkelstein. Finkelstein.
You had it right.
I had it right the first time. I second guessed myself. Oh, I'm on all different platforms. I'm your pal Sully. Oh, I screwed up the ending of my show. There you go. Well, it doesn't matter. Just watch the show.